Welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be my Gameweek 15 transfer plans. Extremely short turnaround, so that's why this video is being recorded literally after the set of games that we had on the Tuesday. Probably the worst start possible. At the same time, I think it's nice to have this because I guess the game week can't get any worse. I think the beauty of playing FPL for as long as I have is that I've had minus 300% arrows. I've had I've had close to minus 700%. You know, just thinking back to some of the free hit game weeks gone wrong. And it's okay. Like, we absolutely got the captaincy wrong so far. I think it's going to be a tough order for Bruno to match that, but you know, he's hopefully going to be able to do well. But we didn't go for any aggressive moves this week. We decided to roll, which is going to hurt, right? Because I think the one threat, I suppose, would be Timber, who a lot of people are moving to this week, Minte to an extent as well. Now that, you know, two of my midfielders have blanked, and I guess, you know, my alternative path probably would have had me, instead of, let's say, going out of Semenyo into Foden, just simply considered something like a Dewsbury Hall sitting on bench, and then obviously a Semenyo to Minte. At the same time, when I think about it, Foden still seems to be the player that I want to have. And I think the reason why I wanted to roll is the reason why I'm still going to go Foden this week. You know, despite him getting a nuclear haul and now forcing me potentially to make some early transfers. A big plus as well for a lot of FPL managers is that Senesi actually lost his red flag. So I don't think he's going to drop in price tonight, but I think I'm going to move out of Senesi myself. So just early disclosure from my perspective. There's not too much to game week review. I feel like I got, you know, the first bench wrong with Krupi and Anderson. Not like it really makes a difference, but I guess 2 points as a notice up is better than 0. You know, regardless of what happens. We did captain Bruno. Someone will inevitably ask in the comments, you know, why didn't you captain Haaland? I'm the type of manager who's already captained multiple players that aren't Haaland this season. I have already captained Saka so far. Got a small benefit from that, 2 points. Hopefully it's not as large of a swing this week, but it's very likely to be a large swing, right? What I'll just say is that I tend to take risks as a manager, in the sense that I'm comfortable with making, let's say, effective ownership swings, where if I think Bruno has good expectations, probably better than Haaland on paper. Now, obviously, that's wrong because of what Haaland did. And I think it's like unlikely that Bruno will sort of match him in terms of like underlyings, for example, for the match. But I think the idea, just in terms of projected points, in terms of just taking on the field on a week where the captaincies are close, I'm generally comfortable doing that. And as I said, I did the Saka captaincy a couple of weeks ago. It probably could have ended up like this as well, but that's FPL for you. And I think I'm more of a risk taker anyways, and I'm comfortable with that. All that being said, I'm still very happy with the general team that I have. We know that Mbeumo still has 2 good games, so we're probably going to own, let's say, the combination of Mbeumo and Foden going forwards, and then revisit the third Arsenal player within my team on Game Week 16. Now, a lot of people are making Arsenal moves this week, and I think it makes sense because, of course, from a Game Week 14 perspective, you still have Brentford at home. You know, Rice and Timber have been doing really well, and my only issue is that, you know, for Game Week 15, I don't really care for Arsenal. Aston Villa away for me is just a tough game no matter what. And some people will probably be free hitting. And I think logically it's quite similar to the free hit 13 conceptually, right? Tough Arsenal away game, yada yada. But I am just going to go for the City transfers that I was planning to do. It is a bit of a shame that it's a bit late. Although at the same time, I guess if I wanted to reflect, you know, Nico O'Reilly ended up with 0 points versus Fulham. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Semenyo, I guess, got DEFCON. So it's not the worst thing in the world. We'll take it. And we still have a lot of players to play, including Mateta. So that's kind of how I feel about the team. I've got 3 free transfers now. Let's just jump into my transfer plans, right? Because we know Foden wants to come into this team, or at least I want Foden to come into this team. I don't know if he wants to come into this mess, but let's just get started. So we're back here with the Fantasy Football Hub, my team pick and rating tool. As ever, if you guys want to use this to sort of manage your team week to week, have a look at, for example, you know, what the suggested AI transfers are to sort of improve your game week rating and your sort of team rating averages. Please feel free to have a look at that in the link in the description below. It does support me as well if you do use the link. So if you're considering using it, absolutely use it. There's a lot of other tools as well, including Opta and a variety more, including just general, for example, AI transfer tools and even like suggested wildcards, suggested free hits, things like that, just to give you inspiration on weeks where you're thinking about chip strategy. Now, myself here in Game Week 15, this is the team that I have. I think this is a great Dewsbury Hall game. This is a pretty good Lacroix and Richards game. I think I'm going to play Anderson. So I guess the point is to say this is a week where Crystal Palace face Fulham, right? And I think if you look at the last 3 games, I think that they played each other. One team has gotten a clean sheet. That doesn't really mean anything to me. At the end of the day, it's still a Palace home game. I know when, let's say, Palace played versus Fulham last 2 times last season, they completely obliterated them. And I think they got cleans both times out. I think even the FA Cup, they also beat them as well. So, they kind of have a nice streak versus Fulham, but I almost think that this Fulham team still looks pretty impressive. Yes, a lot of screamers were sort of scored versus Man City. I don't think City should have scored 5 goals. I don't think Fulham should have scored 4 from that context, right? I think Fulham's XG was still less than 1. City's was around 2.5, so obviously they should have scored a lot of goals, but probably not 5. That's not going to take away too much from, I think, how that's still City. And we'll see and monitor, I guess, how we feel about the Palace offense versus Burnley away. But, they're on fumes as well as a team. I feel like Fulham would have probably been quite energized from that match just versus City, and they have a touch more rest than, let's say, Palace. And so I'm kind of intrigued in just sort of taking a stand here and just saying I want to play Anderson over Lacroix, and I'm happy to bench double Palace defense. For Senesi, he comes back for Chelsea at home, which is great, but at the same time, it's Chelsea at home. So the only good game for Senesi is Burnley at home. The big question for me is, with the amount of free transfers that I have, does it make sense to hold Senesi for this Burnley at home game? Or do I generally just want to move with a sort of different team in a different direction? I just feel like because he's so unplayable for the rest of the other weeks, and I do generally really like having defenders that probably have better points expectations from a fixture point of view as opposed to, let's say, a DEFCON point of view. Because when you look at Senesi here, I feel like as the Bournemouth defense is slipping and as team models, for example, look down a little bit less on a team like Bournemouth, my concern is generally that the Palace defense is probably going to hold up stronger. And I think if I have the option of keeping Lacroix and Richards, I like doing that more so than holding Senesi for now. So I think I'm going to forego a little bit of value in terms of my team in Game Week 17 and then just make a move out of Senesi. So what I'm planning right now is Senesi out, Semenyo out, and that also means, I keep Mbomo for Wolves away, maybe Bournemouth at home. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I think I'm just going to bring O'Reilly for City, if I can spell correctly. And I'm also going to go for Mateta out to Thiago. Now, I don't think this is the best move in terms of, I do think Mateta to Thiago is a very, very soft downgrade just for this specific game week alone. But I think the upside of getting Semenyo to Foden is kind of needed for my team. I also think that if I think that O'Reilly starts, right, because we should have hopefully some information around the City lineup for this game. City play on the Saturday at the 3 p.m. games. I would hope by the deadline, potentially, we might have a leak or something like this. Yes, of course, Arsenal play versus Aston Villa at 12:30, which is before that. So maybe we won't get any news whatsoever about City. But I just think that this is still likely to be an O'Reilly game because I do think Pep's going to respect Sunderland. Now, there's obviously the possibility that maybe City play instead of even someone like Ryan Aït-Nouri, but maybe a lineup kind of akin to the one that they played versus Aston Villa. I guess if there's ever a chance that you think, okay, you need taller, more physical players versus Sunderland, if that's sort of needed, right? That's something that I've considered. But I think holding O'Reilly for the run ahead is just beautiful, right? Like the expected points for O'Reilly are absolutely insane. When Ryan Aït-Nouri is gone, I think I'm just going to enjoy a lot of the points. I'd rather have him earlier than later. So that's going to be the team that I have, right? In theory, I would love to play O'Reilly ahead of Lacroix, and then I have, what is probably one of the better benches around the field this week and make this move. Now, it doesn't necessarily improve my team rating, but I think from the perspective of just making the right transfers going forwards, I think it makes sense for me. I think Thiago probably is going to have better minutes than Mateta. Palace's attack, I guess, could fall off a little bit with Sarr leaving the team. They're pretty thin as well. In a sense, Brentford will also be hamstrung by the same situation because Dango's going towards AFCON. But I think Brentford's fixtures are a touch better than, let's say, Palace's, whereas it's kind of Mateta's XG that's holding him up as the valuable pick that he is. And I think for me, as I said, I think if Thiago and Mateta are close, that's all I need to do to sort of make the moves to players like Foden and also just to sort of pocket O'Reilly within the team. On Game Week 16, of course, the team just starts to get better and better. It's not the best City match, and I think once again this could probably be actually quite a low scoring affair, which is not a huge problem. I think on Game Week 16 here, the biggest question is how do I get towards Arsenal, and there's a couple ways that I can go around this. I think Timber's going to rise one more time, so on Game Week 16 the big question for me as a manager is how do I get towards Urian Timber. I think there's 2 ways I can probably do it on a week like this. I think Krupi Jr. down to Gu gives me money in the bank, and that move can actually probably net me a Virgil upgrade towards Timber. So that's one solution, first of all. The alternative solution to a week like this, I think, is maybe I have to sell Mbumo a little bit earlier and go into someone like maybe Shade. Because when you look at the Brentford fixtures, I do think Shade is going to benefit in the sense that if he's the 90-minute sort of second attacker within the team over a really good run of games, I think he's actually an interesting midfielder of choice. Now, he's just an example. People can obviously think about players like Minte, who I absolutely love. But the issue with Minte for me is you still have Liverpool away, you still have Arsenal away in the distance. And I don't really have the team structure where I think I can rotate around that. Whereas when you look at Brentford's fixtures, you can actually play them every single week pretty much for the next 4 to 5 weeks over this period, right? Between 16 and 20 and even 21 to an extent. So that would allow me to make the Yuri and Timber move away from Lacroix and to just simply go for Timber here. So that's something that I've been considering. Obviously, we'd probably keep Krupi in the situation. So I feel like I've got 2 ways to go towards Timber. I do think Timber is better than Mbumo on this week, or at least if you kind of think about it from a situation of, if we have these luxury free transfers, and I'm going to use 2 free transfers anyways, I feel like any of these 2 moves would kind of net me the players that I want, so to speak. And if I make these moves, for example, this is a pretty strong team, right? The team rating starts to look really good from this point on. And then from game week 17, I feel like we're so far away from this game week where I don't really need to think about it too much. I start to, for example, have very deep rotation, but players like Virgil, I might not play him versus Tottenham away, even though Tottenham have been pretty abysmal as of late as an attack, although, the set piece heroics kind of came through once again versus Newcastle. Not that it really means too much. I think like you can't hang your hat on that every single week as Tottenham. But this is kind of where the team is slowly moving to. And I think the team rating obviously, is moving in sync with the transfers that I've made. And I think the whole point of this landscape here around game week 16-17 is, yes, you want to make moves in 16-17, but you also don't want to make too many moves because you do want to hold at least a few free transfers in the bank so that when we head towards, let's say, a blank game week, double game week period, you don't really need to be forced to use your wild card immediately. You hold your wild card for the second sort of blank and double game week period. And that's probably the best way to sort of play around these AFCON transfers being such a gift in FPL this season. So this is sort of my transfer plans at this moment in time. As I said, it all stems from making the move to sell Senesi. Now, I guess I could sell Richards as well, but I don't really like the idea of the Richards move leaving me with 0.0 in the bank, because if there's ever a situation where, let's say, as I said, even if I go back to game week 16 where I just want to make a simple move, like let's say I watch Liverpool once again in game week 15 and they're abysmal because they didn't play West Ham for a week, then probably I do want to go out of Virgil, right? I want optionality. I want maybe the chance to go from Krupi, as I said, to Gu, and then to go Virgil to Timber. So that's kind of why I like the flexibility of having a little bit more money in the bank. At the same time, if there's ever a world where I keep, let's say, double Crystal Palace defense at around game week 16, I don't mind it too much, right? They've just proven to be such a strong team. Their defensive numbers have improved this season massively. So I'm kind of looking forward to making the move and owning Yuri and Timber a little bit later, but I think having a really nice team structure that's, I think, kind of covers all the bases in FPL, right? Like, we're not seeing that Salah's a priority player. Maybe the only player that I don't have within this team is Gakpo, who I think I find probably quite interesting, and maybe his minutes can be, very, very good within that AFCON pair. But then also, I guess when you look at the Liverpool fixtures, there are some sort of weird parts to it. Like, I think if let's say you think that Liverpool players are going to leave in game week 17, this is a kind of mediocre week in terms of Spurs, and then Wolves at home, Leeds at home. Those are 2 amazing Gakpo games. So maybe there is room for me to go towards a Gakpo, and potentially it's actually through someone like, let's say, Bukayo Saka, where I don't think the Arsenal fixtures are that amazing from an attacking point of view, and I could move towards there in the near future. And that's something I've sort of been considering. But yeah, I think he's the only player where, of course, when I look at my midfield, I'm kind of missing out on him. Maybe a way to sort of get there, of course, is, considering what I can do with, let's say, the Krupi Junior money, maybe I don't go Shade as well, right? So on 16, that there is a possibility that I could maybe just go Gakpo instead, and then sort of just make Krupi Junior Gu. This way, I think I have a pretty strong team as well, and maybe Gakpo's better than Shade. So that's something that I've also been considering, and it could be interesting, right? So that's kind of what I'm considering right now, just as a general structure move. I think it's okay to use 2 to 3 transfers in game week 16. I think the best practice is probably if you have a even more perfect team than myself, just to use the one, so that you can kind of perpetually roll 5 free transfers and then really use it when it's necessary. But you know, the game's not really going to require that many structural shifts when so many players are gone towards AFCON, and at the same time, like, you just don't have the need to like splash the cash around unless you've got a lot of faith in someone like Cole Palmer, right? Cole Palmer could make a splash around this period too, but you know, I still find that there are issues with the Chelsea fixtures. Like, you know, I don't think I really will own Cole Palmer around fixtures like Newcastle away, Man City away, which are sandwiched obviously by 2 good games in Aston Villa at home and Bournemouth at home. So that's kind of the thing that I struggle with this period, where I just think we're just going to roll a lot of free transfers. So feel free to be aggressive and continuing to be aggressive. So those are my thoughts in terms of my transfer plans. I'll see you guys soon. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do keep in mind that there's a lot of price action, because just this is the nature of game weeks within game weeks, or weeks rather. And yeah, all the best. See you guys soon. Take care and goodbye.